Okay, so it's another edition of Let's Chat Sales, and today we're talking about founder procrastination, and particularly procrastinating around sales, putting it off till it's too late, or putting it off and delaying the inevitable, which is you got to be out and talking to customers. So we'll dig into it today. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, like and subscribe and all that. So let's get started. Hey, Bob, it's another episode of Let's Chat Sales. What do you say we chat about sales?
Is it really a chat, Brendan, or is it more a compressed discussion?
I'd like it to be a chat that is of a compressed nature. How's that sound?
Okay, that's fine. I can work with that.
So
what's our topic today?
I'm fixated on the whole founder sales thing, of course. And so sales procrastination for founders in particular. I find
like
this to be
topic.
Yeah, it's endemic, right? It's not an epidemic yet, but it's we only need one of those, right? COVID's enough, don't you think?
I was going to say.
But it is pervasive among founders, especially technical founders. I have some thoughts about that. I suppose you do too.
Can you define it first for us? Because I think we want to be operating with the same definition.
Yeah, that's a good point. I find that founders typically put it off and don't do sales until it's too late, or they do it later than they should. And there are a lot of reasons why I think they put it off. And I think that's one of the things we explore, because I think we can understand why founders put it off. We can work to address it. I'm reading a book. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why they put it off.
Well, yeah, I'm reading this book now on the power of habits. The thing about habits is they have a trigger, and what causes something to happen or not happen is because of a trigger, and there's an event. And I think one of the things that prevent founders from doing sales and from executing on sales is they would rather be building because it's in their comfort zone. I think that's one reason. And so they're comfortable doing that. It's in their wheelhouse. It's in their comfort zone. The reason for that in particular is because the minute they go out and start to talk to people, they're going to have to come face to face with challenges and limitations or issues with the very thing that they're building. And the uninitiated don't want to run into those objections and those truths.
Well, I think there's a fear, right? That if you go out into the marketplace and start talking about what you're doing and it falls flat, you've wasted all this time.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to stay in your corner office, believing that you have the great solution to all the world's problems. And as a result, you don't get the feedback that ultimately, if you can accept that feedback, can really make your solution far better for the audience.
Or a variation on that same theme is this idea that it's not ready yet. I need to do this and this and this, and then it will be ready. That's when I want to bring it out. I don't want to bring out something that isn't complete, that isn't
my masterpiece.
Yeah, a masterpiece that doesn't solve all of everybody's problems. And ultimately, that's an impossibility. Microsoft Word is still coming out with new features. Excel is still coming out with new features. Those products are decades old now. The idea that you come out with a product that is fully formed, especially for a startup, it just doesn't exist. It's an impossibility.
So do you advocate the minimum viable product model where you create the bare bones essentials and put it out in the marketplace and let the marketplace kind of steer you forward?
I find that even before that, you put out the minimum viable demo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I think it's completely possible to sell things that don't exist. And I know that because I've done it a bunch of times.
You're a venture capitalist dream, then.
Yeah, that's what systems integration is, and that's what any sort of custom B2B development that you do for an enterprise is. Oftentimes, they're buying something that doesn't exist yet. They're helping you with the spec.
Same with marketing, really.
Right. And so what you do is you go to customers before you've built. Very uncomfortable situation for a lot of developers because they want to go and build, and technical people, they want to sit down and write code. And what I would prefer them to do is to have a bunch of conversations where you literally have PowerPoints or drawings or simple mockups. And nowadays the tools are so powerful now. You can create a little mockups in no time with Bubble or what is it, others, and Miro, and you can
Yep.
create these little tools and walk someone through it, and then let them, for lack of a better word, crap on your idea. And then from there, you can make all sorts of changes before you've written the code. Now, the problem is you still have to get over this notion that your idea isn't complete or there are problems with it.
Right.
I have some thoughts about that. What do you think?
Well, one thing I was going to say, I love your idea of giving them the earliest vision for it, because I find that people are much more willing to comment on what I'm building earlier in the process. Because if I say, hey, I've got this idea, like when I was scoping out a book at one point, I gave 10 people, here's the outline. It's really loose. I even did it in pen on paper rather than on a computerized document, because I wanted them to be able to play with it. As long as I was willing to, one, welcome their feedback. I really want you to point to the flaws, the things I've missed. The second part of it I like is just, it makes it a collaborative effort, which I think ultimately makes that a potential sale opportunity, because you can go back to the person and say, hey, you really helped me realize this.
Yeah.
Now it does this. How do you feel about using it?
The mock-up is particularly powerful because it's not carved in stone, so to speak. It's still a work in progress. It's a rough draft. And so people are much more inclined to comment and critique a rough draft than something that's your final piece of work. People don't want to confront someone with bad news if they think the thing is their baby.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things you have to do is you have to, and this is going back to this idea of habit, is as a founder, you get in the habit of welcoming the bad news. You want to go out and find the bad news. You want to find the critique. And how do you do that?
Can we shift that, Brendan? Because bad news, no one wants to hear bad news.
Yeah.
So can I wordsmith that for a moment for you?
Sure. Yeah. This will be good.
Instead of bad news, the potential areas of concern, right? It's not bad news. It's just someone goes, hey, the way you want to pay for this, you want to do a subscription model, that's going to be really hard for my company because we do things this way, or whatever it is. Yeah. And that's not, to me, bad news. That's just a shift of, I didn't realize you wanted to operate it. Maybe it's a nuance, maybe it's semantics. I don't know.
Here's how I ask that question, because I'm kind of adamant about this, and that is, maybe it's not bad news. The thing I would ask them is, what's wrong with this? What doesn't work? Well, I'm not sure this works, like this feature. What's missing?
I ask that question, or how can I improve this?
Yeah. Like,
you've got the nuts and bolts here. What can I do to improve this for you?
I want them to crap on it. I want them to say, this is what I don't like. What's liberating is what you'll find in those conversations. If you go out and search out the things that are wrong with your product early on, you will find over time that as you correct these things, some of the things you'll hear from people are legitimately and consistently wrong, and you got to fix those, or you have to pivot, or you have to make a decision. But over time, you fix some of these things, and you'll find that fewer and fewer things are wrong or missing or lacking or important. And then you're on the right track. And I think the thing to keep in mind about being a founder is it's a long slog. You're at it for a long time. And if you can't get some of these things out of the way and discover them and resolve them early, you're making that slog longer and more expensive and less likely to succeed. And so that procrastination, that putting off the sales, is really harmful to the very idea, to your very business. And I think founders are in an ideal position to do this sort of work. They want to put it off. I was literally with my startup accelerator group yesterday, and one of the guys has just a really great idea, and he's putting off talking to customers because he's not comfortable having these conversations yet. And I'm pressuring him in a way to say, it's time. You got to go and have some of these conversations with people to find out exactly what needs to happen next and what's in the way. And it's just a natural reaction for founders to hold off. And the minute they can start to change that mindset, I think they're in a much, much better position. And they're really, really quite qualified to do so. because they're the person that has the keys to the car, so to speak. They can change the direction of the product. When someone talks to you as a founder and says, hey, you really need this feature, or I can't use it because it doesn't work with this workflow, and we have SAP and you have to plug in SAP, and you hear that 2 or 3 times, and you're the CEO, you're the founder of the company, you can do something about that. And they're telling you because they know you can.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, I think, ultimately, is that when people have that discussion with you and you're the founder, you actually have the power to affect change in a way that 2 years down the road, when your salespeople are out telling people how it is, it's too late.
Yeah. So how do you make them comfortable with this new mindset? What's the trigger? What's the catalyst to get them out and make that sales effort? I think you have to make the sales process part of your habit. And that is, you have to dedicate an hour a day. One of the founders has to dedicate some amount of time every day. It's like, I'm going to spend the next from 9 to 10 every day. It's sacrosanct. I'm blocking it out, and I'm going to have conversations with prospects and customers. If you make that part of what it is you do as part of like your job description, that's just, it's sacrosanct and inviolable. And is that a word? That is a word, right? And just part of your daily routine that you just have to get through, and you just get through it. You find that over time, first of all, it becomes automatic. And secondly, you invariably get better at it, and it becomes more rewarding. That's what I do when I work with founders. That's typically the thing I try and instill in them is, hey, this is a regular process. And, one day a week, we're going to go through your pipeline. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to see what objections you're running up against, what issues, proposals, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, the idea is to try and turn this into a habit. And then once you turn that into a habit, you want to be out there learning. It's all discovery. Everything is discovery, especially for a founder. You're always in that learning mode, trying to figure out what to do next. And as you get better at it, you figure out what stuff is BS. People tell you stuff that's BS. I remember with my company, I have a good friend that kept telling me, oh, you got to change the name of the company. Like, now? Really? That's your tip? And then you just know, all right, okay, that's not, you move on. Right.
And I think that discernment is really a powerful part of this. It doesn't mean that every piece of feedback is perfect.
That's
right.
Because
someone's going to tell you it's priced too high, and someone's going to tell you it's priced too low, and someone's going to tell you it doesn't do this. And you've got to be able to read through that and say, okay, this is what matters. But until you get that feedback, you can't know.
Yeah. So it's all practice. It's all.
Yes. And I love the idea of a habit of it and building it in. But I've dealt with some people where they have that habit that, 10 to 11 is their magic time that they're going to do sales. Yeah. And what they invariably do is spend 10 to 11 looking for people to talk to.
That's a topic for another day, but you're absolutely right. I'm going to do research. I'm going to load names into my CRM. Yeah. We'll save that for another day. So
okay.
I think we've kind of beat this one up, didn't we? I think
we did. I think we gave some really good hints. Right, I think the idea of a habit is great. And I think we really defined it in a way that founders are probably going, that's me. Yeah. I need to work on that.
All right. Well, that's good, Bob. Let's wrap this up, and we'll beat up on another subject next.
This was great. Thank you.
Good talking to you, man. See ya. Okay, that's another episode of Let's Chat Sales. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, of course, and then check this one out. It's this one right here. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.